Hi, my name is Cindy. I am completing assignment 6. This chapter had a lot of information about the Head Start program, about how it works, and different numbers were being thrown out at us. Also, during the meaningful differences in everyday experience of young American children, it had a lot of information, some of which actually worried me because of such of the gap difference. But I'll start with what made me happy to read and to learn. Which was the Head Start program. The Head Start program is a program that was designed by the federal government to assist families of low income to be able to provide their children with proper education at early childhood stage. This is an attempt to close the gap between children and to prepare them for elementary school. So this program not only helps the children, it helps the children educationally. If they have any issues, medical issues, disabilities, or anything like that. But it also helps the parents. It teaches the parents to be, I hate to say this, but better parents. It teaches them, it provides them the ability and services and the community services that they could go ahead and reach out to for assistance, whether it is for them they need assistance in childcare, assistance in their own personal educational growth. So this is actually really good. It says here in a study that was recently done that 52% of 1-year-olds are actually home based. I don't know how I feel about that because home based, they only get weekly visits per month. And that does not mean that the child's receiving the proper education necessary. They may not be being read to every day or interacted with often. Although I would like to think so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's happening. As I was saying, the other things that kind of excited me about this Head Start program was the fact that it provides parents with a guideline as well as educational institutions with a guideline as to what the classroom and home environment has to be, requirements for the parents to provide specific home environment requirements. For example, in this program, it allows you to it requires the teacher to work closely with the parents. It requires the parents to be involved in their child's education, which, as we read previously, the parents' involvement in the child's education will, in the long run, assist the child and assist the child in their educational level. They'll not only be at the same level or above other children in their grade level, but they will also be more socially active. They will have a wider range of literacy, words, vocabulary, because they are interacted with more often. There were a lot of concerns, though, that did come up during my reading of this chapter, which are worries. 52% of the 1-year-olds are home-based, as I mentioned previously. That kind of worries me a little bit, as they may not be receiving the proper education. But we hope that parents do provide that. Another concern of mine was that studies show that though reading is important to infants and toddlers, it doesn't happen quite often to low-income families. Whether it is because the parents do not have time to, or they simply are too preoccupied. A lot of low-income families also have multiple children. So it not being read to lowers their chances of being at a normal level as their peers. Another issue that came up is that the culture itself. For example, during in the study timing, frequency, and patterns of maternal reading ages 1 to 3, white mothers actually reported to read to their children more frequently than any other of ethnic background. What happens to our Hispanic and our Black culture, our Indian culture, our Chinese culture? Why is it that we're not doing what we need to do? Is it because of the lack of economics? Is it because we're lower? Most of these cultures are a little bit lower in the socioeconomic standing. But like I mentioned previously, reading to the child will greatly enhance their chances of being at the same level as their peers. So this is a great concern to me. It actually worried me reading that, to know that the gap is so great between Hispanic culture and the white culture, the black culture and the white culture, etc. Another thing that concerned me when reading this is during the predicting outcomes of measures of the broader language and literacy environment, the results were that at age 2, children with most supportive learning environment had productive language scores that were twice those of their less advantaged peers. Again, it goes back to social economic standing. These children are being deprived pretty much of being at the same level educationally as their peers, and it's simply because of their parents' interaction with them. In the video, it actually continues on into that concern of mine, as it says that professionals, doctors, lawyers, people that speak often during their profession will talk to a baby or a toddler at least an average of 2,200 words per hour. That is a lot. That is substantially more than the 500 words per hour that somebody of a lower socioeconomic class, meaning that they probably did not graduate from a college, they're not professionals, they probably are scraping by bare minimum, talk to their child. Another great difference was that they pointed out in the video was the fact that family culture also impacts the way that parents talk to their children. There's some people that are just more reserved and quiet, and these people will talk less to their babies, making them talk less to their toddlers. So then that builds a bridge also. For example, the professionals that speak 2,200 words per hour to their child, they have, by the age of 4 or 5, they have about 50 million words said to this child, highly increasing their level of literacy once they enter formative educational years, compared to families that talk less to their children, which could reach anywhere between 13 and 25 million words, which is automatically setting them back. There's a huge gap. And I would love to see ways, I would love to see ways of parents and the government continuing to try and close this gap. Although they're trying with these Head Start programs, it's very limited to families that make only about $24,000 for a family of 4. So that's something that I would love to find out. And my personal stance on the knowledge that I gained from this chapter and video is that we need to continue trying to close this gap. We need to do everything possible as educators to close this gap, even if it means providing when we have parent-teacher conferences, provide little booklets with little activities that the parents could do that will take no more than 5 minutes every day with their child to enhance the parent and child interaction, enhance the communication between the parent and child, and start closing this gap off. So that's kind of where I stand. And I think that if we do that, we'll be in a very good place. And those are my thoughts and opinions of this chapter and video. The habits, I believe during this video, the habits of the mind that I actually used were several. In fact, I think most than in the previous assignments. I know for sure that I used the questions and problems posing because of the fact that I was questioning why there is a gap, what the problem is, and I'm trying to find a solution to how to close this gap, how to make the gap between socioeconomic classes less for children, at least in the school. Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, that is one that I obviously used, as I had to communicate, process the information that I was provided with in the chapter, in the video, and communicate it in a way that could be understood by others. Let me see. And thinking flexibly, I think I also kind of used it as I was thinking of alternatives and different ways that we could assist parents in closing this gap. Even, for example, like I said, providing them with little activities that they could do at home for 5 minutes so that their children could be communicated with and interacted with more often. And lastly, I applied past to new. As I had stated at the beginning of the video, I had previous information about the Head Start program, as I had taken this a course that we did a Head Start project. So I had previous information and I placed it into this video, basically applying past to new situations. But those are the items, the habits of the mind that I believe I used during this assignment. So I hope that my opinions and thoughts and my thoughts and opinions did not insult anybody. And thank you.